All right, everyone, we're only 4 days away from the next four primary states. We have Illinois, Ohio, Florida, and Arizona. Florida is definitely the big one, but all of them have significant delegate counts. I'm looking at the polls. We've got fairly decent polling from Florida. We've got 3 polls to aggregate. All of them show Biden well out ahead by at least 20 points. One of them shows him ahead in the 40s. I would hesitate to guess he's probably not going to win by that margin, but I think 30 points as a gap is appropriate. Now, until today, we didn't have any polls from Ohio or Illinois. By the way, if I sound throaty, it's not coronavirus. The cat put one of its hairs in my coffee, and I almost swallowed it, but it got stuck. It did that thing where it doesn't actually go down, but you can't get it back out, so you sit there hacking. It's fucking the most disgusting thing ever. I wanted to puke all over myself. Thankfully, I managed to wash it out with more coffee and an energy drink. Why am I so jittery all morning? I wonder why. I'm just happy anyway because I'm talking about politics. This is sort of my forte. Anyway, Bernie Sanders is behind in literally all 4 states if you look at polls now. Some people keep harping on me. Well, why do you trust the polls? They're always wrong. Not aggregates. Aggregates are usually fairly accurate. Now, I know one poll from Ohio, one poll from Illinois, that doesn't mean necessarily a lot, but when you've got a 20-point gap, it's well outside the usual margin of error to say, therefore, that Bernie Sanders suddenly wins by 10 points. And I expect Biden to win all 4 states, really, on the 17th. Now, there's a debate. It's the last thing standing in the way of basically Biden coasting to the nomination. If Biden does not get completely ass-blasted by Sanders at the debate on the 15th, and even then, because of a combination of early voting, which is going to favor Biden, early voting, late deciders who are simply anti-socialist, independents taking a ballot who don't really care about the debate because they're not Democrats, I think Biden will win in all 4 states no matter what happens at the debate. I happen to disagree with the amazing atheist. I don't think Bernie has a chance at this point unless Biden has a health issue or a total breakdown on stage. That is not just a loss. Losing the debate, well, Biden's never been a good debater. Bernie Sanders is better at a unscripted debate sort of style. He is better than Joe Biden. By the way, there won't even be a studio audience. They moved the debate, and this is funny, in the last 24 hours, they moved the debate from Arizona, which is infected with coronavirus, to D.C., which somehow is not infected yet. The one place that deserves it the most doesn't have it yet. They move it to D.C. and eliminate the studio audience to try to protect the candidates. How goddamn surreal is this? Coronavirus has begun to affect the political situation. Schools, by the way, are closing in Ohio. It's going to be interesting to see how this affects voting patterns, actually. Now, of course, it's not like turnout's been particularly high for the Biden camp, except for last-minute deciders, but it could definitely affect things. Think about it. Old people are the most likely to vote. They're also the most susceptible to coronavirus. Some of them might keep it in mind. Oddly enough, Bernie Sanders, because of his youth coalition probably not giving a damn because of the much lower death rate, probably Bernie Sanders voters more likely to go to the polls. It'd be funny if coronavirus became a complete chaos situation and only Bernie's under 30 voters actually showed up and he ends up being nominated because of coronavirus, but then he gets it and he croaks. Wouldn't that be interesting? So he beats Biden, he becomes nominee, but then he gets sick and dies, McKinley style. We could see a situation like that. And, that could actually happen. Just think about the ramifications politically. I'm not hoping death on Sanders or anybody else. I'm hoping that the virus goes away soon. I'm just not expecting that to happen. But looking at the polls, we have good polling from Florida. We have good polling from Arizona. In both of those states, Biden is way out ahead. Again, 25, 30 points. That's an insurmountable lead. I'm sorry, but I don't think that there are that many voters that are soft supporters or undecided to swing it back to Sanders, even if Biden does a 2 out of 10 job at the debate. You can assign them a numeric value. 50-50 would be they're both firing shots across the bow. They're both landing a few hits. Nothing changes. I would expect probably Bernie Sanders, because of desperation and the fact that Biden is crazy, I would expect Bernie Sanders to do reasonably well. He hasn't had a chance to one-on-one debate before, and the problem with Bernie is that he gets antagonized, and if you have a lot of people up on stage talking over each other, it gets him real hot under the collar because he loves the sound of his own voice. He wants to be able to deliver a monologue. With just Biden there, Biden who, gets feisty sometimes but is a more mainline candidate in the speaking style, Bernie Sanders will be under less pressure and probably perform better. Totally admit it. I just don't think that he can swing 20, 25 points. I mean, come on. Bernie Sanders isn't even at 40% in the national aggregate in a two-person race. He can't even hit 40 nationally. And he has no... The idea that he's going to have any support in a place like Florida when he was praising Fidel Castro, at a bare minimum, Joe Biden is going to run away with it in Florida and take off at least a couple of the other states. That's at a bare minimum, I think. That's assuming a disastrous debate performance. I don't expect that to happen. I expect Bernie to swing a couple of points in his favor. And again, keep in mind, early voters are already casting ballots, number one. Number two, late deciders are going to break for Biden. This has been the case in literally every state. There's no geographic rhyme or reason for it. It's just people voting against socialism. I think these are open primary states mostly too, if I remember correctly. Independents are going to vote for Joe Biden. They're not going to vote for socialism or they wouldn't be independents. Hell, they'd barely be Democrats. They'd be Green Party members or something. Jill Stein would be very, very happy. It's very funny how Bernie Sanders has managed to con a bunch of people who have hammer and sickle avatars into backing the Democratic corporation. Which, by the way, he's going to kiss Biden's ass when Biden is nominated. He's going to endorse him. He's going to sell out again, and he's going to prove everyone who thinks the Bernie thing is a goddamn pile of bullshit, he's going to prove us all right. You watch. He will cuck again, and he's going to walk away with millions of dollars, no refunds, and buy a fourth home. That's what Bernie Sanders is going to do. And then he'll probably manage to con Vermont into voting him back into office again. It's not like he's going to retire. That's what'll happen. I expect Joe Biden to crush him on the 17th. It's possible, if he crushes him by a large enough margin in all four states, let's say, let's give an arbitrary number, 10-point gap at least in all four with at least a 20-point gap in Florida. If that happens, I expect Bernie Sanders will essentially suspend campaigning. He's not going to drop out probably. He realizes he'll come out and he'll say, well, he shouldn't run unopposed. Well, I realize that there's no way forward to having an absolute majority of delegates, but I'm going to stay in the race. But I am going to suspend active campaigning. And he'll get a few delegates here and there. He'll get over 15% in most of the remaining states just because of the Never Biden voters. But he's not going to want... His fans will run roughshod. If he drops and endorses halfway through the primaries, his fans will not be appeased. Whereas if it looks like he's at least stayed in, just for the sake of calm, the Democrats will probably beg him to stay in the race longer. I could be totally wrong. It could be that they hate him so viscerally they're willing to commit political suicide. That's always a possibility. After all, this is a DNC led by Tom Perez and Nancy Pelosi. Keep that in mind. Tom Perez is the de facto corporate head of your party. Your main figurehead is Nancy Pelosi. You're about to nominate a 78-year-old man with early onset dementia. Keep that in mind. No, Bernie Sanders is not looking good. Again, you've only got one poll from two of those states, but it conforms to the same ratio. It's almost like a replication of the national vote, actually. With Biden already in the mid-50s, possibly upwards of 60 situationally, and Bernie struggling to hit 40, really, anywhere in the country. Other than maybe the New England area and the remaining few rural, more western states, like a South Dakota sort of thing, I don't see anywhere where Bernie Sanders can compete. And literally everything else has been going for Biden. The delegate lead will be considerably higher after the 17th. And more people are going to call on Sanders, if not to drop and endorse, at least to suspend. Now, Elizabeth Warren is a wild card here. She hasn't endorsed, and there are rumors she might not. She might sit out the whole contest, just sitting on her, 50 delegates or whatever she had, her pitiful total. Her political career is basically kaput anyway. She came in third in her own home state. Again, to a pair of fanatics, a pair of weirdos. Not that she's not, but she's a spring chicken compared to Bernie Sanders. He's got 7 years on her. Keep that in mind, too. That's about all. Peace out.